Grab your court-ordered recount ballots, Wargamers, because today we are doing a refight of the medieval scenario number 19, Blow from the Rear, from Neil Thomas's excellent 1 Hour War Games. Shed a little light on this subject as the sun goes down here in beautiful Hawaii. For those of you that haven't seen the previous scenario, this is the Blue Army, and they win if at the end of 15 turns they've got any units within 6 inches of either the bridge or the ford. If they don't, the Red Army wins. That's all there is to it. These 2 units are held in reserve until turn 7. These 3 units come on for the Red Army at turn 6. In a previous refight, the Red Army brought 3 infantry units to try to bog things down and brought their knights in over here, and it just didn't work. The infantry couldn't do enough damage to do anything, to force a crossing or make any changes or even pin these guys in place. So in my last video I said, well, let's mix it up a little bit. Let's try putting our infantry over here. Now I've actually got 2 knights and 1 levy up there just off screen. They're going to come in on the first turn, and we're going to bring in 1 knight and 2 men-at-arms. Those are the heavy hitters, heavily armored guys. And that's going to happen on turn 6. So they basically get 2 attacks, 2 moves, 2 attacks before these guys start for both turns 6 and 7. And they got to try to clear the board a little bit because these guys are going to be all heavily banged up. So, with all of that said, oh, there's one more thing I should tell you about. I tried to fight this with a different set of rules. I actually said, hey, you know what? When the Red Army tries to force this crossing, technically they're the attackers. So these guys, being the defenders, shouldn't have their attack rolls halved, and it turned into a slaughter. Red just couldn't do enough damage. These guys withered on the vine and didn't do enough damage so that by the time the reinforcements came on, it was just 6 on 3, and it was just a total beatdown. So I realized that the genius of this rule set is that as you're attacking back and forth across the river, from a micro-tactical standpoint, it makes sense that either side can only do half damage. You've got a narrow crossing. You've only got so many guys at play. And from kind of a macro-tactical perspective, this still maintains a defensive perimeter for blue. After all, in this game, in this particular scenario, and in most of them in the book, what you find is that the defender is just trying to hold ground, just delay, 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 so that you've got a 4 on 3 when these 3 boys do come on, and improve the odds. So, you know, it works with both sides having the rolls. I should point out, it's cumulative. So these men-at-arms holding the ford are going to have, when they're attacked, they're going to divide by 4 to see what their actual damage is. With all that out of the way, let's get to it. I think the big difference here is that the knights have enough movement to engage on the first turn. When you've got infantry, they wind up spending the first 2 turns just getting into position. And in a close run game like this, that can make all the difference in the world. So this 2, add 2, divide by 4 means that these men-at-arms actually only take 1 point of damage. You'll have to do better than that. They've got 15 hit points. With only 15 turns, that is what you want to see. Particularly because these levy only have half damage. So that's going to be a total of 4 points of damage. And they're not going to last long against these knights, forcing the bridge. 4 points of damage. But the good news for blue is they get to counterattack, and here is going to be a total of 2 points of damage against these knights. And over here the levy are going to hit back and do 1 point of damage against these knights. For movement, these knights would, kind of mixing things out of order here, they're going to come down here to prepare to receive these Johnny-come-latelys. And then on turn number 2, we do have some spearmen that are going to move up. They're just off screen, but they're going to pause kind of in this area so that they can go wherever they're needed most. And that's the movement phase. So then we do combat, and over here this is going to be 2. So once again, this is very much like the last battle. You're going to have to do better than that. Let's see if these guys can. And a 7 divided by 2 becomes another whopping 4 to bring them to 8 points of damage. So well done on that side. And then we've got an attack. We'll spin these guys before we do that attack. So they're facing, see the general? He's facing that way. This attack is going to do 2 more points of damage, bringing these knights to 4. And over here, we're going to have a levy that does 1 measly point of damage. That's it for turn 2. Obviously, staying here is probably the better ploy, because as they fall apart, they can step up. So these knights are going to do 5 divided by 4. They actually do 2 points of damage this time to bring them to 4. And these knights over here are only going to do 2 more points of damage to bring them to 10. And for counterattacks, we've got a roll of 5, which does 3, taking them to 7. And we've got a 7, which drops to 4, so they are up to 6 damage. On to turn number 4. For the red, they don't have any movement, and this attack over here is going to do just 1 point of damage, taking these men-at-arms to 5. They are, in the modern parlance, just a tar pit. And a 5 cut in half becomes 3, 13, so in all likelihood, this levy is going to go bye-bye after the next turn. Oh, grab the wrong die here. We get a counterattack for 5 points of damage, so they go to 10. And over here, our counterattack does a whopping 3 points of damage, taking these knights to 9. Turn number 5. So this is the last turn before the reinforcements arrive. And, oh, it's a doozy. 8 divided by 2 takes these guys to 7. And over here, with just 2 hit points left, a 2 is all they needed. These these levy are done for. But they're going to have to hang tight as these knights get to move up and engage on their side of the turn. So an attack here that does 1 point of damage, taking these knights to 11. And over here we've got 7 points, taking them to 12. So now things get interesting. That's the end of turn 5. So turn 6. This is when we bring on the big boys. Reinforcements have now arrived, and we're going to bring the first one up to there, the second one straight out to there, and then the knights can move a full 12 inches, so they'll move to there, forcing a difficult choice on this guy. We do still have a couple of more attacks. We've got one over here. 7 becomes 2, so these men-at-arms are now up to 9 damage. And over here we've got the first... Oh! Did we roll? Yeah, we did. Okay. They're going to roll their first attack, and they're going to do 5. Cut in half becomes 3 against these knights. There you go. And boy, these spearmen probably should have committed to one side or the other. But it's too late now. On turn 6, we can go ahead and engage these knights at least on the part of the blue. And that's the only movement that they're allowed this turn. So starting here, that's going to be 6 points of damage. That is not halved. So that first attack is very important. Over here we have an attack, and that 3 points of damage takes these knights to 12. 3 cut in half is 2. They were at 11. And then we have one more attack over here, and that's going to do 5 points of damage, 3 points, so they're gone. That's enough to remove them from the battle. Now it's turn 7. And these guys are free to act on their turn. We're going to bring these spearmen can move to here. And that's it. Which is an interesting thing because they're not allowed to cross the river. Do they want to charge out and risk being cut off? But we'll get to that in a minute. The other charge that's going to happen is we're going to see a 45-degree pivot. And they're going to impact the flank here. And these guys are going to race over here and not quite make it to those men-at-arms. So we have a big attack here that's going to do just 3 points of damage. That's the first 3 damage for that night. This flank attack does double damage. And that 12 is going to remove them from the battlefield. Man, they really needed that. So things are looking up for red. We got another attack over here. And these knights managed to do another point of damage. For 10. And then on this side, there's no other attack. So that's the end. Now we move on to 7. And so turn 7 is critical. We got to think about this. These guys are not going to get an attack this turn. They only get to pivot 45 degrees if they're going to charge. And like I said, they can't cross either. So we're going to do a little bit of do-si-do here. We're going to turn like this. And we're just going to move our full movement like that. But our flanks are protected, I think. And he's got to stay there, unfortunately. Or does he? What do you think, guys? If he runs over here to help out, if there's enough survivors, they can come back and get stuck in. So why don't we do that? Now, they're not going to get an attack this turn, because you can only charge if you're within 45 degrees. But I think just moving to there to force them to adjust is worthwhile. We'll bring this die up here. And that's it for blue movement. The only attack blue has is over here, this turn. And they're only going to do 1 point of damage. But that's really all they got to do. 13. They could have rolled big, they could have made it, they could have ended it. On to turn number 8. Red's going to go, and these guys are going to move their 6 inches to here. So they have secured the bridge. But again, remember, anybody within 6 inches. So I think it's going to come down to just wiping out the other team. These guys can charge, but all these men-at-arms can do is pivot and move to adjust to there. And these guys can't actually charge to engage there. And I think that's going to be the end of the motion on this turn. So we'll go around the horn. We've got 1 attack here. 6 points of damage to kind of even things up down there. We've got an attack down here, which does 5 points of damage, taking these knights to 8. To 8. Gripping video, I know. We've got an attack over here that does 1/4 damage, 2 points of damage, taking these men-at-arms to 12. And that's it. So moving on to blue on turn 8. We get an attack here, which is going to do 8 points of damage. Oh, that's a big one. Oh, the fickle fates. 14, they've only got 1 left. We've got an attack here. And bear in mind, they're attacking men-at-arms, so that's only going to do 1 point of damage. No, excuse me. 1 plus 2 is 3. Divide by 2, round up. They did 2 points of damage. And then we got an attack over here that is going to do enough to eliminate these knights as a fighting force. So a lot of back and forth. Moving on to turn number 9. Red gets to go, and fortunately for them, they're going to get first attack here. We'll pivot these guys around and come over this way, ready for these guys. It's going to wind up being just a linear battle from the looks of things. We'll start here. Rolling a d6, 6 points of damage, takes these knights to 12. Excuse me, that's 8. That's 6 plus 2. That's 8 points of damage. Takes these knights to 14. 14 and 14. We got an attack here that's going to do just 1 point of damage to these knights. Attack over here that takes these knights to 10, and that's it. On to blue, counterattack. These knights are dead. These knights get to attack there to do 3 points of damage against the men-at-arms. Oh, excuse me. Cut in half because it's men-at-arms. That's only going to be 2. Over here, likewise, that 4 points of damage is only going to take them to 4. And so those heavy boys are good at receiving a charge. And then, oh, Boobala, you were supposed to turn. I mean, it doesn't really make any difference. They can't turn enough to enter melee with them. All they can do is kind of turn to receive the charge, which is going to happen on turn number 10. And of course, that's Red's movement. So kind of an unusual situation where it's not a line, is it? Like I said earlier, you actually have Red coming from this side and this side. I wonder if they wanted to charge into these guys' rear. I don't think they can. You know, if you look at how this is lined up, they're going to wind up impacting those guys. So we'll call it that way. We've got an attack here. These men-at-arms are going to do a whopping 1 point of damage here. That's really not going to do it, particularly because you're about to get flanked, guys. These men-at-arms are going to roll, and a 12 isn't going to do it. And these spearmen are going to roll half damage, takes these guys to 13. So I'm kind of thinking these men-at-arms are going to be the hero of the day, because you've got a 45-degree... Yeah, we'll allow it. And that's it for motion. Double damage. 10, that's 14 points of damage. Eliminates them as a fighting force. Over here we're going to do... Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I take it back. 14 points. Halved because it's men-at-arms. That's only going to do 7 points of damage. It takes them up to 9. And then we've got over here, we've got a total of 5, becomes a 3, so they're actually at 12. So they're hanging on just maybe long enough. Got an attack over here that's going to do total 3 points of damage. Take these men-at-arms to 3. And then over here we've got the first blood does 3 points of damage to these spear boys. 3 points of damage. On to turn number 11. It's getting kind of hairy. No movement left. So they're gonna attack these guys and do 1 point of damage for 3. We've got an attack here. That 6 wipes them out. And then we've got one more attack over here. Anything but a 1, a 3 wipes them out. So just when you thought it was all over. Becomes Blue's turn, and they've got 2 knights that are going to wipe this guy out. He's only got 3 hit points left. He's taking double damage. That's it for them. And... these knights aren't done. They're going to about face, and they're going to race over here. And these knights are going to do the same. There's nothing says, no, they're just going to hold tight. There's nothing says they have to go anywhere. So they're going to turn, looking at how this might develop, and they're going to stay out of range of these foot pounders, who are now in a little bit of trouble here on turn 12. These spearmen are going to race back to here, and these men-at-arms are going to move to here. Yeah. So they've got this, so these guys just have so much mobility, it makes it a little bit tricky. They can, so these guys are relatively fresh. They're just going to pivot and get ready to charge, as are these guys. Three damage over here. Yeah, and that's it. So they're not within one move. Boo, boo, boo. That might have been a mistake. The spacing here is, I mean, this is their do or die line right here. And they've still got 13, 14, they've still got 3 turns left to survive, so I think you gotta play it out as a death match, and you wait for them to come. I think that's what you gotta do. We go on to turn 13, so there's 3 left to go. And now, you know, red doesn't actually have to give combat either. He can just settle in right there. And he can just settle in right there and give it the old come at me, bro. Alright, well, on this 13th turn, we will come at you. And we'll come around this way here to set up for a last minute desperation ploy. If they're within, you know what, if they can hang on, this could be interesting. This could be interesting. So blue is going to make that first attack roll for 7 points of damage, taking them to 10. And then we move on to the penultimate turn. Red is going to attack here. What are these? Well, these guys are going to go ahead and rotate 45 degrees, but they don't have the movement to get there. That's going to cost them. So then we have one attack there, and it's going to do 4 points of damage, taking these knights to 7. And then on the knight's turn, these guys are going to pivot around. Oh, here come the chatterboxes. And we get one attack here. That will do, 4 points of damage, which keeps them alive. Takes them to 14. No, it's not time for kisses, Prozac. These birds, they love me, what can I tell you? Now on the last turn of the game, we can drive in there. Oh, and we can do 2 points of damage, and then we can do another 4 points of damage, which goes to 13. And we'll play it out to the bitter end, but the game is already over. I think, yeah, they're within 6 inches of the bridge. This is our 6-inch mark right there. On their turn, they can come over here, and we get 2 attacks on this guy. who's only got 1 point left anyway, so why bother? If we had a longer fight, we might have been able to see if these guys take it through, but we're at turn 15. So let's talk about the aftermath here. I've played the battle twice using two completely different scenarios. And now that we've seen how things go, the increased maneuverability and firepower of these reserve knight units simply make all the difference in the world. It's just an overwhelming benefit to the blue army. It's just really hard to defend against. I think you need to have those 4 knights. It's the only way to get it done. So I don't know what we're going to do next. I think I've seen enough of this for now. We'll move on to some other kind of game later. Until then, I'm praying for you. Oh, hey, look, Mom's home early.